Good evening and welcome to the Gates County Board of Commissioners special meeting on September the 7th, 2022. I am Dr. Althea Riddick, the 2022 Chair of the Board. I'm joined this evening by Vice Chair Commissioner Hoffler, Commissioner Jack Owens, Commissioner Ray Freeman, Commissioner Jonathan Crowder, and County Manager Tim Wilson. We again welcome Ms. Pam Hurdle, who's helping us out tonight by taking the minutes for us. At this time, I ask Commissioner Crowder to lead us in prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you. We come today just to thank you for the day that you have made and let us rejoice and be glad in it. Father God, we ask your presence in this room tonight as we make decisions for the county and the upcoming future of this county. Father God, we thank you for safe traveling mercies here and safe traveling mercies home. We ask all these things in your name, name above all names, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon again and welcome to all our guests we have that's going to be presenting to us this evening. And I know they traveled far and have far to go to get back, so we're going to try to get them here to do their presentation for us. If you have any handouts that you would like to give to or submit to the commissioner, just hand them to Ms. Hurdle, and she'll make sure that we get those handouts. We're very glad to have Mr. Steinberg here and Mr. Stansel here. They're going to do a discussion of legislative lobbying services. So I asked Mr. Steinberg to come to the podium and do the presentation.
Well, members of the commission and guests, good evening. Bob Steinberg along with Jackson Stansel. And we are here tonight to answer any questions you might have and present a very basic background information of what we are proposing to do, and that is to represent Gates County as a lobbyist, as two lobbyists. You actually get two for the price of one, which is pretty gosh darn good. A lot of you folks I know, Dr. Riddick and I go back a long time. Linda I'd see her in Raleigh and elsewhere in Edenton and so forth, which is where I'm from. And we're happy to be here tonight to be able to share with you a little bit about what we do. I served in the legislature for the last decade, representing northeastern North Carolina in both the House and the Senate. And I will be, when I begin, and I can't actually begin lobbying until February 1st because I have to be out of the General Assembly for 6 months. There's a 6-month cooling off period. And so I can go out and I can consult and I can try to line up clients, but I can't actually advocate for you until the 1st of February. But what we propose to do for you is to be your voice in Raleigh, an additional voice for you in Raleigh, an advocate for you in Raleigh. One of the things that we have to determine, and we had the privilege several weeks ago of meeting with your county manager, Timothy Wilson. Good to see you again, Mr. Wilson. And we talked a little bit about what he felt at that time were some of the needs that you all have expressed moving forward for Gates County. And we were happy to learn that that this county is not going to be sitting on its hands, but is going to be taking a very active role moving forward, whether you take on our services or not, but you will be taking an active role in trying to change the paradigm here as it has been in northeastern North Carolina. As you all know, it's been a struggle for a lot of these rural counties. That has changed over the last decade, and I like to think that myself and some of the folks that I've been able to work with in the General Assembly have had something to do with that. What all counties need, in my view, and I'll let Mr. Stansel speak to this as well, you need advocacy. Everything is today, you need access. You need to be able to get to the folks who are the decision makers, and you have legislators representing you, and that's very important, and you need to have legislators obviously representing you. But they do not always have the time, perhaps, to be able to get into the intricacies of each and every issue that you may be wanting to pursue. That is something that we can do. We're here listening to you. We have a very unique arrangement in lobbying, Mr. Stansel and myself, in that Jackson is has been ranked as one of the top 25 lobbyists in Raleigh. There's 770 some odd folks who lobby Raleigh, and Jackson has been doing this for a few years now, and he's been in the legislative building for over 20 years. So what has happened is he has really, I think, perfected his craft. He's very, very effective. And he has an office that's about 2 blocks from the General Assembly building. So he's there every day. He lives in Johnson County, and he's there every single day when the General Assembly is in session. When I say this is unique, it is unique from the standpoint of we are operating as two. And it's hard to get your lobbyists, those people who've had lobbyists, it's hard to get their lobbyists over here into the Northeast. It's a long haul from Raleigh, and they may come over once or twice a year to chat with you about what's going on and so forth. But our plan is for me to be here, I live in Edenton, for me to be here in the Northeast and probably visiting you on such a regular basis that you may even get tired of seeing me. I certainly hope not. But it is my plan to be here for you, to be able to respond to those needs you have, and then to work in conjunction with Mr. Stansel, my partner and my associate in this endeavor, to get those things, try to strive to get those things done that you're seeking, to try and see that we are able to at least put them in front of those folks who are the decision makers, the budget writers and so forth, the folks who have the pencil in their hand, to make sure when it comes budget time that Gates County and their concerns and their interests are indeed going to be represented. So that's what we're, in a very broad sense, that is what we will be doing. I certainly can answer any specific questions you have, or at least try, but first of all, let me introduce you to Jackson Stansel and let Jackson share a little bit about his background and himself. Thank you.
Mr. Stansel,
Son's a children.
Mr. Stansel, he'd like to move that podium to the...
We can? Okay. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come to Gates County, and you're all very welcoming. I rode around here a little bit, got here early and just kind of looked around, and it kind of reminds me of my hometown. In my county, at least the rural part of my county, I grew up on a tobacco farm, and believe me, I know what work is. And I went back there and living in my house that my great-grandfather built 100 years ago. So I understand what small town, deep roots mean. And it reminds me a lot of my hometown. Like I said, I went to, grew up on a farm, went to, tell you a small little story. I was out there burning tobacco one day, And my daddy took me out to a field when I was 6 years old and said, right there's where I got my start, and that's where you're going to get yours. And about 10 years later, after we got all the tobacco in the barn and got it to the market, I said, I need to have a meeting with you. He said, my father worked for American Tobacco Company. I said, one thing I've noticed is that you're making half the money out here and you ain't working here. And he said, it took you 10 years to figure that out. I said, well, I got it. I said, if it's all right with you, I want to go and work in the tobacco warehouse. So he said, out of the field and into the warehouse. I said, yes, sir. But grew up on a farm. We always had to buy our school clothes, things like that, and learned a good work ethic. We worked hard, but I thank the good Lord now that I grew up like that, where hard work was expected. And I think that kind of, I know on hot days there at the General Assembly when it's 100 degrees and we're walking across the bridge, and I think, sure beats burning tobacco sometimes, you know. So that's who I am. I'm a farm boy. I went to college. I figured out that I didn't want to be a tobacco farmer. I went to college, went to NC State, studied agriculture and economics, and ended up working in the General Assembly, worked on staff, worked on the Ag Committee a lot, and education, actually. And that's where I kind of cut my teeth. I worked in the building for about 15 years and decided that I didn't want to run for office, that I wanted to go ahead and go to the dark side and go into lobbying, because I feel like, as I learned there, that lobbyists, some people don't hold that word in high regard, but if you really take a look at it, the people, at least that I represent, I think that they'll tell you that they get a good return on their investment. And I like Bob's and my idea of him servicing you here, being here at your meetings, and hearing what's going on here, and me being in Raleigh every day, and we can communicate. He can be on the ground here, and I can be on the ground in Raleigh. And I'm sure he'll come up some, but it's real important, you know, to have somebody on the ground here. And that's very rare, and I think it's a good business model, because you actually get to hear. But one of the advantages, I think the biggest advantage of having a lobbyist, you know, obviously you have a lot of policy issues that rise from time to time, but the most important thing is the appropriations of the state budget. And that's where you're going to get the bang for your buck. I think Ms. Riddick can understand how well Elizabeth City State has done in the state budget as of late, and that's a good thing. But what I will do is, when they have these marathon appropriations committee meetings, when they're that last week or two, I mean, they stay in there sometimes in the room, sometimes to 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'll be sitting out there by the door, texting the appropriate people inside the room, don't be messing with my stuff. Is my stuff in? And I call that the witching hour. I mean, that's what I do. Because you can get, you know, if you're not there and you're not working, sometimes your request can get taken out and replaced with something else, because it's a card game a lot of times. But if you're not there, you might wake up the next morning with a knife in your back. And it's a tough gig, but you've got to be there. You've got to be there. And I'm there. I assure you. I've been there. That's why I'm ranked in the top 25 out of 757, something like that, because I'm there. And I got that. The reason I am there is because I used to have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, take out 2 barns of tobacco before everybody else got there. I got that work ethic from my daddy and my grandfather. And, that's who I am. And, we would like to represent you. And I'm asking you to please consider that. And if you have any questions, we would entertain those now.
Well, I would ask, let's take the last session,
Yes, sir.
appropriation session.
Yep.
You know that we're a rural county.
Yes, sir.
What would be an example of how we could have benefited if we'd had you there on our behalf?
Well, the one thing that jumps out at me, I'm an Eastern North Carolina boy. I understand what being from Eastern North Carolina means. The thing that jumps out to me first that seems, well, 2 things, water and sewer and broadband. I think those are 2 large issues that are kind of underfunded in Eastern North Carolina. When I was working on the Ag Committee, one of Mr. Steinberg's cohorts that I worked for, Representative Langdon, we worked a lot on water. You've got to have water. You've got to have good water for economic development. You've got to have broadband. You've got to be able to turn the computer on. So things like that I think could benefit. That's what jumps out in my mind. I know in some counties, again, getting back to water, some counties need a water tower. That seems to be a reoccurring issue. Things like that. Now this was Pitt County. One of my clients is ECU Health, Vidant Health. I was a big part of getting that $300 million in there for a new Brody School of Medicine for Eastern North Carolina. We need that because those doctors, 70% of the doctors that go to Brody School of Medicine stay in Eastern North Carolina. We've got a shortage of doctors and we've got a shortage of nurses in this part of the state. Now, for example, like with Vidant, one of the things that's going on now is ECU Health, Vidant. But last year, they were paying $19 million a month for nurses. Well, there's a nursing shortage in Eastern North Carolina, and I had the CFO up talking with the guy that's got the checkbook in his office, Senior Appropriations Chair Brent Jackson, who's from Johnston County, and my friend, and my son worked for him. But we had the CFO in there, and from last year they were paying $19 million a month to this year paying right at a little over 100, 19 to I think it's about 75 to 80 million dollars a month. But we've got a shortage in Eastern North Carolina of doctors. We've got a shortage of nurses, PAs, health care. You got to have good health care in rural North Carolina. That's real important for economic development. There's a shortage of just your basic needs, again, I can't stress enough, water and sewer. Things like that. But you guys know, and ladies know what you need.
Let me add this, if I may. Think about this for a minute. And it is a lot better not having that sun in my face, that's for sure. Thank you. There are 170 members of the General Assembly. You have 50 in the Senate. You have 120 in the House. East of 95, Republican, Democrat, House, Senate, you have 17 legislators representing all east of 95. Now, if that doesn't point to even someone who's oblivious to the obvious, why rural counties in particular and those east of 95 need advocacy, I think that points it out more than anything else. Even the legislators who are representing you, which I did for a number of years, by yourselves, you know, unless you're a very effective legislator, it's very, very difficult to get the votes you need to get something that has to be done. You've got to be, some people might think I'm a little sometimes to the point, but I can tell you that you're not going to get anything unless you've got to go in and you've got to fight for it. And I think Eastern North Carolina and Northeastern North Carolina in particular, which is where I'm going to be focusing my efforts, I think they are certainly deserving of investment on the part of the state, whether it be in education, whether it be infrastructure, including water issues. And water are big. I have, just to give you an idea of some of what I have done other than representing you, the soil and water commissioners that represent Northeastern North Carolina, my wife and I have missed, I think, 5 of their meetings in the last 10 years. And so if you really want to know what's going on, this is my point, not how great were we for attending those meetings. They had good food too, so I mean, it was really nice going, and desserts. But the big thing is being able to hear from the folks who are on the ground, the folks who are dealing with these real issues every single day, to hear what they are saying, to gain their input, so that when these issues come up in Raleigh, when I was in the Senate or in the House, when these issues come up, I can speak on these issues with authority because I have heard it from the folks who actually are dealing with it on a daily basis. Most legislators aren't dealing with, most of what they deal with isn't something they deal with on a daily basis, and that's why it's very, very important, I believe. Sometimes you might think that only the big counties have lobbyists or should have lobbyists because they're the only ones that can afford lobbyists. My experience is, after having been in the General Assembly for a decade, actually the folks who need lobbyists more are the folks who you might think on the surface can't afford it. They need it more than the big counties do. They've got to have representation. Again, remember, 17 people east of 95 in the General Assembly speaking on behalf of Eastern North Carolina issues out of a total of 170. You're just not going to get the attention unless somebody is there to blow the clarion horn and to be able to go in and fight for those things that you all, in my opinion, maybe not every one of the things because I don't know all the things that you're looking for, but that I think you are certainly entitled to a seat at the table, where your concerns should be voiced to those people that we know, our associates, people that I've served with over the years. Most of them in leadership positions now are people that came into the General Assembly the same time I did. So, these relationships, you can get in the door. A lot of times you can't, when you come to Raleigh, sometimes you can't get in you can always come to see me. I always let you in. I always let you in. You can always come in, yes. But a lot of times it's hard to get an appointment with these folks, and it's because they're so busy. I don't think they're trying to be mean or rude, but it's very difficult to get in. I can assure you there's not a door in Raleigh that I can't get in, and I probably wouldn't even need an appointment. That's what serving does. You've also got a track record of what you've accomplished. They know you're a fighter for those things that you believe in, i.e. prison reform, which is very, very important to me. Elizabeth City State University, which they were going to close just a few years ago, and now it's turned around, it's a dynamo. Those are the kinds of things you've got to sell it. You've got to sell it to the leadership as to why it's important to make these investments. And we will soon have I say soon, it might be 4 or 5 years before it actually starts, but you're going to have Interstate 87, which is going to be going from Tidewater down to, all the way down and over to Raleigh. And that's going to be a big deal. The first bill that I had passed in the General Assembly 10 years ago was a foreign trade zone bill. The folks in the General Assembly, they were very proprietary about their ports and so on and so forth. We need to do business with the ports of Morehead City and so on and so forth. We don't want to hear anything about the Port of Norfolk. Well, for us up here in northeastern North Carolina, the Port of Norfolk is just up the road. And it's large and it's deep and and that's where, we need to be taking advantage of that. So what I did was I had a piece of legislation drafted that was put into the budget that meant that these counties, including Gates, are part, and this is a big selling point if you're trying to attract somebody into your county, are part of the Virginia Port Authority's foreign trade zone in North Carolina. And that is very, very important. There's no more land up in Tidewater for them to expand. Their business is expanding, but there's no place for people who are importers, exporters, points of assembly. There's no place for them to go. And what little land there is up there in Tidewater is very, very expensive. But you cross that invisible border, and you come down to the North Carolina, there's all sorts of land and opportunity, and you have all the same tax benefits. Actually, your tax benefits are better because our state taxes are lower in every category than the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia. So I just wanted to point that out. That's why I think advocacy is really, really important, especially for eastern North Carolina. Wake County, I think by itself has more people, or is it Wake and Mecklenburg?
No, Wake.
Wake County by itself has more people than all of eastern North Carolina. The more people you have, the more legislators you have. So over here where we live, we're getting fewer and fewer legislators with bigger and bigger districts. So it's very, very important for Gates County, in my view, and all of these counties up here, to have someone who can articulate what it is that you're trying to achieve and then take it to Raleigh and sell it to the folks who are making the decisions. Any other questions? I know you look like you had one.
Yeah, just listening. I've got to really stay. I'm hard of hearing. So, heard two trigger words for me. That's fees and investment.
What's the first?
Fee and investment. Not asking you what your fees are right now, but as far as a return on investment of what my fee will be.
It is against state statute to promise a lobbyist you can't guarantee. You can't.
I understand that, but I'm just.
You can't, but, I think my ranking is self-evident because I would not get that if my clients were not thoroughly satisfied. And, that's really as far as I'm comfortable in going with. I mean, ethics is a big deal in the General Assembly. And, like I've been telling Bob the whole time about anything, call ethics and get, have it documented, what you said, what they said. And, I'm very careful about that. But, if I would, I'll say this, I was offered, and this is no lie, I was offered $10,000 a month on a 6-year contract to do something, to lobby for something that I just didn't think was right. Nor did my mother. And that's a lot of money. But I turned that down. And, that's like $750,000. But I just didn't think that was right, what they were asking.
No, you can't.
And some, that was a 6-year deal, and I just, I was the Sunday school superintendent at my church at the time, being responsible for Sunday school, and all the children in the church, and being involved in local. I love coaching, but I love coaching baseball kids. That ain't right. I mean, it's. I'm sorry, but you know, my mother worked in the. I'll tell you a little story.
Go ahead.
But my mother worked in the General Assembly for 30 years, and I asked her. So I always take my mother. My father's deceased, but I always take my mother to lunch after church every Sunday, so she won't have to cook for everybody anymore. She did forever. But I asked her, I said, hypothetically, if your number one son took this lobbying client, what would you say? She said, hypothetically, if my number one son took that client, then I'd go see my lawyer, and that farm you're living on right now is going to come out of your name. I said, I thought that's exactly what you'd say. But that's not the reason I turned it down. But I mean, you know, we're not into price gouging. There are lobbyists, you know, some of his cohorts in the Senate. I mean, I know one that won't take one for less than $12,000 a month, but that's too high. And I know, you know, I think we found the sweet spot, quite frankly. And I think there's a lot of money that still hadn't been spent that's come down from Washington that they've got to spend this upcoming session.
Either spend it or it's going back to
and they're not going to send it back.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you that. There's still some money there to be spent. And I think they're probably going to get some more money from this latest infrastructure bill that was passed in Washington. So, you know, they've got a pot of money that they got to spend, and it's a good opportunity for rural counties like this to get a piece of the pie.
Well,
Quite
here's,
frankly,
let me add
yeah.
this too, because I think this is important.
Yeah.
This is, I hate to bring politics into it, but politics is part of everything we do. You have to take a look at who is in the catbird seat at the General Assembly right now. There's two parties. There's one party and there's the other party. And for the last 12 years, the Republicans have been in the General Assembly in control. I think there's every likelihood, given what's going on in Washington and so forth, regardless of where your heart lies, I think there's every likelihood that's going to continue for the next decade. So if you've got folks who are representing you who don't necessarily have any voice with these individuals who are making the decisions, it's probably not going to be helpful. So, I mean, that's just being very candid. You don't have to like who's in there. You don't have to like what's been done, but those are the facts. And so it would be very difficult, for example, for a couple of folks from the other side that may very well and most likely be representing Gates County moving forward. It's going to be tough for them to get the kinds of things. They'll get something, I'm sure, and they're good people. I'm not saying anything about them personally, but I know the way it works. I mean, this is just the way it works. You don't have to like it. I don't always like it. But I know how to get it done, and I know what needs to be done to get it done. So that's kind of where we are. Our fee, I mean, if you look at, and we haven't talked numbers, but the county manager is aware of the numbers and maybe shared it with you all, you're getting 2 for less than 25% of what you'd get 1 for with many of these other firms, let's put it that way. I was in Edenton a few weeks ago to receive an award for my service for the last decade and in the legislature, and I just happened to be there on a night when a lobbyist, I was just there to receive the award, but when there was a lobbyist presenting his case for representing, I think it was the town of Edenton. It wasn't even Chowan County, it was the town of Edenton. It was almost $10,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And I mean, so it's, you know, it's like everything else, everything is going up. We're not looking to, you know, this isn't all about making money. I look at my track record in terms of what we've brought into northeastern North Carolina over the last decade in investment through the state budget and so on and so forth. If you take a look at that, obviously, and I think anyone that knows me knows my passion is northeastern North Carolina. I've made that very clear. And the folks that I am approaching you saw the city of Elizabeth City the other day hired me to lobby for them, and it was a unanimous vote. And certainly Elizabeth City can be the politics can be very polarizing in the city of Elizabeth City. Unanimous vote. No negative comments. Yes, let's do it. So they recognize, I believe, what I'm hoping that you will recognize, is that we can put you in a better position for opportunity. We can't make any promises, as Jackson stated, that would be illegal, but we can put you in a better place in terms of at least, I think at the very least, of ensuring that your needs are going to be heard. That much we can tell you for sure. And it's going to be heard by the right people.
We thank you for the presentation, and one of the reasons your contract proposal wasn't shared, because I wanted the board to hear it from you. Sometimes when you show people what something costs, they just make up their mind they're not going to do it. But if you read the newspaper, it's been in the paper.
Yeah.
All the other counties that you visited. You recently I think it was Martin and Bertie.
Well, we've got, it's Hertford County, which is right next door, Camden County, Currituck County. There's a number of other counties, Chowan, City of Eaton,
Right.
City of Elizabeth City. And there seems to be a great deal of interest. And I would like to think that it's, your history should be indicative of the passion you have for any particular issue. And certainly, I think it's very easy to see that my heart is in northeastern North Carolina. So I'm going to be doing my best, if given the opportunity, along with Jackson, we're associates, affiliates, I should say, we're affiliated, to represent you in the best way we know how. And you'll be very pleased, I think, at the end of the day. And we're not looking to get a 2-year contract, which it is a 2-year contract. We're not looking to get a 2-year contract and then have to come back. We'll have to come back and ask you for a renewal at the end of the 2 years. But we're hoping after this 2 years, we won't be going through this on the renewal. You'll say, no, they've done a good job. I think we need to go forward. So
I will close with this. From my perspective, appropriations are essential, and most of the time that's what we get funding by appropriation, but we also need advocacy, especially with broadband. We're struggling with that right now. The great grants just came out, and there are some negotiations that has to take place, and there's so much funding coming down that will fill in what's missing. Once we do the great grant, there's other funding, because this is not it as far as funding. Right. But we struggle with sometimes bills or legislation that they put in place, and we are not at the table to say, but that hurts us. Exactly. It doesn't favor the small rural counties such as Northeast North Carolina, so we need a voice there that understands what we need as broadband, not just Gates, but the whole region, like you said, east of I-95. So along with the appropriations, which we're going to expect to get some of that funding that's coming down, we also need someone at the table at the right time when those bills are being written to make sure we're not written out of it, and that they stick to what they say they're going to do. So we're feeling that right now. The great grants were released last week. Everybody knows that. And we have some negotiations to do in all these counties. So that's my point of view as far as someone at the table when those bills and legislations come up, to make sure that at least we're heard. And you can speak to, or someone can speak to, the negative impact it will have on smaller counties such as Gates County. Right. And I appreciate the presentation. We want to hear about the contract. We will, according to my notes here, we're going to hear that and probably look at it, think about it, and then next meeting, I'll probably ask for the wishes of the Board of Commissioners. You have a month, or we might have whenever. But you tell us, not tell us, share with us your contract that you want us to consider.
I think that Mr. Wilson has a copy of each of our, there were two separate contracts.
There's two separate contracts.
Yes, but they're in essence the same thing.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I add something? You said something very significant that ran across my mind that I can't leave here without saying.
Yes, speak in the microphone so everybody can hear you.
You know, and a lot of people do not understand what I'm about to say. You know, people view the legislature as one body in one building, but that's really not true. You've got the Senate side and you've got the House side. And it don't matter, it's the same party. They are just like that with each other. And where the most important thing, I think, the function of a lobbyist is, say we might get it in appropriation on the Senate side. Well, I got that in there for you, Jackson. My work is done. But where you need a lobbyist is that lobbyist is going to run over there to the other side of the building when your work is done and meet with that appropriations chair. Like I was saying, don't mess with my stuff. And that is where that's one of the best things that people don't think about, because I know one chamber, I'm not going to say which one it is, says the other party is not the enemy, it's the other chamber. And sometimes when you get behind the closed doors, it's not about party, it's about the other chambers, because this chamber wants what they want and this chamber wants what they want, and a lot of times they're in the same party, but you've got to be able to thread that needle. That's why you got to be there at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that is just the truth. And people would not understand that, but that is the largest role of a lobbyist, is getting it in both chambers. Once if you can get it in both sides, then there's when it comes up and then they meet, then your stuff is done and there's no debate. So the key is getting it in the House budget and the Senate budget from the beginning, because if you can do that, you don't get into the horse trading at the end, and that's where your lobbyist does your best work and you'll never see it. And that is just the truth, unfortunately.
Okay.
But that is the truth, because those chambers go at it. And rightfully so. It's the way it is. So, but I couldn't let that go without saying that, because that is the biggest role of the lobbyist is to get it in the other side.
And it's always been like that, even when, we all remember Senator Bass Knight, and he was in the Senate.
It doesn't matter who's in charge.
Still, they were just.
It's really not Democrats and Republicans a lot of time once they get in there.
Yeah.
It's the House and the Senate. And you wouldn't think that. But it is on that appropriations bill. All the other stuff, they mix it up. But I mean, I'm good friends with everybody on both sides. So, I mean, if there is a change, and that pendulum always changes. If you think it don't, you're wrong. So that's why I've always been of the mindset, there's good people up there on both sides of the aisle. They want the same thing. They just have a different way of getting to it. So I'm always prepared for a change, because it can happen just like that. So,
Is there anything other specific?
No, I think we're going to consider a 2-year contract.
Yes.
And Mr. Wilson, will you tell us on that contract what the price is? Because that's what we're waiting for, as far as what each year is going to cost us.
It'd be a 2-year contract at $72,000.
No, begin to Mike.
2-year contract, total $72,000.
it comes out to $1,500 a month.
Yeah. So it's,
And I would start in January because you don't need to go a month. He can't start until February. But if you wait till February to get started, that's not good.
Well, the earlier you get
That,
started.
that's, I mean, you know, I try to do a lot of stuff and, I try to get my stuff done in January, at least laying the groundwork for it. Because if you come to the party late,
Well, and one
It's
other
not
thing
good.
I want to mention is
It's not good.
that you've got to know what you're talking about when you're making the presentation. And so credibility is very, very important.
Yeah.
And if you have been, for example, for the last decade, representing Northeastern North Carolina, their needs, their interests. So when folks in Raleigh know that I'm talking about issues related to Northeastern North Carolina, they know this is somebody that knows what he's talking about, obviously. He's been there, done that. We've heard from him for the last 10 years, so we know.
yeah, and I was on staff the
Okay.
whole time, before I took the leap here.
Are there any closing comments or questions from the commissioners?
We'd ask for your consideration. And please, if there's any questions between now and you decide, please feel free to call.
Well, we're thankful for the presentation. Good seeing you again.
Thank you, nice seeing you again. I'll see you in the evening sometime.
Yes, you will. I know you will.
I always feel like actually Bob, when Bob.
Start shaking hands, you gotta shake hands.
When Bob finally.
No problem.
Thank you, sir. It's a good presentation.
Good seeing you. Yes, sir.
He ought to pass the plate. I sit back there in the lobby a lot of times when Bob get through, I said, all right, pass the plate. So thank you for what you do, Doc.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll have a report from Michael Irvin, Director of Albemarle Commission on urgent repair funding guidelines. I think he's here with Sharon. I see her sitting there as well. Welcome.
I am, and I thank you, Dr. Reddick, as well as commissioners and county manager. Before Bob gets out of the building, I wanted to mention one thing. This urgent repair program, there's two sides of it. There's what's being allocated by the North Carolina Housing Authority, but then this past year, we received a grant, a legislative grant from Bob Steinberg for $1.3 million. The first time that Albemarle Commission has received that. $800,000 of that is dedicated to this urgent repair program. So I just wanted to let you know, that's what Bob has brought to the table for all of the work that you're seeing done right this minute. Those monies are coming from the legislative grant monies. So,
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm starting. As you know, we came to speak to you several months ago to ask you for your permission to go ahead and submit a grant application on behalf of the county. And so we did that, and while we didn't receive it in the exact form that we were hoping to, we did receive some funding from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and along with the funds that came from Mr. Steinberg, we have started to implement that program. And we wanted to let you know that it's going really well. We have uncovered some issues that we've been discussing with Dr. Riddick, and I had a meeting with Willie Smith, the Director of Social Services, last week, just to let them know, some of the things that we're finding. But we have hired a gentleman who is a licensed contractor, and we call him our community housing coordinator. He takes the calls and we vet them, and he heads right out pretty much the next day to look at the homes that have requested repair. The homeowners have requested repair. So we're very excited. We started that program maybe the 15th of July, I want to say, is when Ryan started with us. And we've just been going gangbusters. So we are very excited. We're glad to be able to meet these needs. I saw on the agenda it mentioned the eligibility guidelines. Did you want us to talk about that, Dr.
Just
Ray?
briefly, because we met last week.
So the main criterion is income. And the Housing Finance Agency wants most of our clients, the homeowners, the household income needs to be no more than 30% of the area income. And actually, I don't have that document with me tonight for Gates County. And then that depends on how many folks are living in the home. The homeowner or the household can make as much as 50% of the area income, but a smaller percentage of the cases need to be that 50%. So that's the main criterion. And then there are special needs. So a veteran who's been discharged honorably in the household, a single mother with children in the household, a total of 5 or more people in the household, someone with a handicap or a disability in the household. There are a handful of guidelines like those that can also help us qualify a homeowner and a household for the program. But the main point is the income, and the 30% is very low income, and the 50% is considered low income. So, did you want me to keep going?
Only 20% can be spent on mobile.
Oh, right. Mobile homes. They really would like for us to concentrate on stick homes, obviously. But we are able to work on some mobile homes if they're manufactured or modular and permanent in structure. And no single wides. The theory being that the government doesn't want to help you fix your home and then you hook it to your truck and take it to Florida. So, like I said, the response has just been great. It's going to be more than we can ultimately help, but we're really hoping that if we're able to implement this program and help enough people and do it successfully, that this will be an ongoing source of funding for us that we can share with all the counties. Yes, sir.
I don't think you mentioned a cap per home, did you?
I probably didn't. I said I didn't have that with me tonight,
Okay.
but I'll be glad to send that to you guys. I'm sorry, I
Did you
didn't-
say cap?
Cap.
About how much you could?
Yeah.
Oh, per home, the repairs. So, you want to say?
Yeah, there's a $12,000 cap for one of the sections that we're doing. There are multiple funding sources that we're working with right now. But the North Carolina Housing Authority funds, URP funds, as well as the legislative grant that we received is based on $12,000. Now, we have some other funds that we can supplement that with. If it is that we utilize our funds to the best extent we possibly can. So there are some funds that come from North Carolina Housing that 12,000 is absolutely the tops. While we can use the legislative funds, utilize the same principle, the $12,000, but let's say that it runs over to $12,500 and we can isolate that $500. For example, an elderly lady needs a elevated toilet because she just can't sit down on a low profile toilet. Well, we've got some other funds where we can pay that $500 and it doesn't impact the $12,000 limit. So there's a lot of things that we're doing very creatively to make sure that the individuals that need help can get help. But we're having to pull it from a lot of different funds to do that. So it's sort of an accounting nightmare for us right this minute, but we're getting it done. And that's the most important thing.
Could you speak to the Southeast Crescent?
Sure. The Southeast Crescent was actually approved in legislature last year, even though it had been proposed a lot longer than that, I think going back to 2007. The Southeastern Crescent is the same thing as the Appalachian Regional Commission, the ARC. The Southeastern Crescent actually covers the crescent of the Virginia coastline all the way down Florida and over to Mississippi. So it covers 7 states. but it's doing the very same thing that the Appalachian Regional Commission does, and that is try and bring people out of long-term poverty. We're in that region, thank goodness. In fact, the state of North Carolina has some of the largest counties that really qualify compared to all of the states involved. The federal funding has been allocated, but to disseminate those funds will not occur until about March of 2023. Each COG in the state of North Carolina is proposing to receive $100,000 just to help the poverty-ridden areas. And it could be individuals that their septic tanks have fell in, their water system is in disrepair, their house could be in disrepair. Whatever we can do to help bring people out of continual poverty is what this entire grant federal funding is all about. And this is federal. This is not state. This is coming out of the federal legislature. So we are working right this minute with the Southeastern Crescent in trying to get some of these things accomplished. And we know that we already have heard that there's 3 counties that absolutely would get money when they start disseminating money: Hyde, Turl, and Washington. The next on the list is Gates. Gates, I sat there and talked to, who's in charge of it? Who was the senator from South Carolina?
Graham?
Lindsay, Graham?
No.
No, the gentleman that was there for so long.
Lindsey Graham. It's Graham and Scott, 2 years.
I mean, is it somebody that's not in it, not?
That guy, that guy.
Yeah, well, his daughter's the one that's running this. So she's
She's the executive.
she's the executive director, appointed by the president. So I met with her in Charlotte last month, and we went through this about what they will be given. And we talked about Gates County very specifically because I said, how could they be any compared to Curry Tucker, Camden, or, Gates County is just not up there to the level that they should not receive any monies. And she explained that, it's just the way that they're rated, but that's not a problem, because if we go do some work in Terrell County, for example, and there's still $1 million left over, if we see as the COG that it should apply to Gates County, then we've got that ability to do so.
So, I can't remember her name either, but I will say about that, that we'd like to encourage you to be thinking, if you as a commission, as a board, were going to help the residents of Gates County, rise from poverty, what would you do? So the applications, the grant funds won't necessarily be as competitive, but we'll be asked to write a proposal to say what the board, what the county would do with those funds to help alleviate poverty in the county. So we were talking about housing because that's foremost on our minds right now, but there are other ways. So you had a question?
Yes, so I know of a candidate, one of us knows of a candidate. What's a proper approach for us to get that person's name on a list? Who do we contact?
You can contact me. I'll leave my card tonight. We do have a process that we're starting to establish in our office, but basically anybody at our main number can help you, and we'll just put them through the queue. We have an intake form. We'll just go through that real briefly, and then if they qualify according to that first step, then we'll continue the process and do a more detailed application.
And do you work the list down, or do you prioritize?
So far, we've just been working the list down, and we've just been able to help everybody who calls. So that's been great, knock on wood. I can see that in future years, we might have to prioritize. There's a ranking system.
Urgency.
Urgency, right. Since it is the urgent repair program. So Right now, as long as our housing coordinator thinks that the repair is an urgent need, so that if it wasn't fixed, there would be a life-threatening situation in some form to the household, then we feel like they qualify in that regard. And we've got enough to choose from. Yeah.
House Representative
Clyburn.
Clyburn, and I think her name is Jennifer.
her name is Jennifer Clyburn
Right.
Reed, but her
Oh.
dad was Representative Clyburn from South Carolina.
Yeah. One final thing I'll say about the urgent repair program is we are collaborating and communicating with the Gates County Housing Committee. And turns out that a lot of the names that were on their list have already called us, and so we're working together to alleviate those problems as well. And we'll keep you updated as things go on, but fingers crossed, so far so good.
Yeah, I think that if you're out on the street, you'll see we're there. We're really doing a lot. And I think really and truly, we're doing as much in Gates County as any county in our region right this minute.
Well, having a contractor on board is a major advantage.
Absolutely.
So nice.
To get, because it's somebody to do the work.
And let me say that all the commissioners have committees that they are liaison with, and I'm the one with the housing committee. I want to make that quite clear, that one of the committees that I'm the liaison is the housing committee, and that's why I've been visiting at your place in Hertford or you're over here in Gates County, and I share the updates. That's why I asked you to come to share updates. It's better coming from you than from me because I get something wrong. So I'll be trying to have you here, every couple of months to give us updates as you feel necessary, so everybody, all the citizens, can hear exactly what's going on with this urgent repair money that we have coming in the county. And we thank you for continuing to try to get us more resources.
I will mention this as the last comment. We are working with North Carolina Housing in every effort that we possibly can to see what we can do to do even more within our region. And of course, Gates County is part of our region. They're a little funny the way they allocate money, so again, we have to sort of shift things around and use these monies in this county or in other counties, but they are also very pleased with what we're doing, and they've told us if we keep doing this, they'll keep giving us money. So we hope that we'll continue to see money coming into Gates County. CDBG grants. We would like to talk to y'all about pursuing those now that we've got a full-time contractor on board.
Okay.
So now we can do things that McDavid and Associates was not doing because we've got the staff to do it now. We talked to Commerce today. I think your county attorney, Philip, talked to them today
Yes,
as well.
for Godwin.
And we're trying to work some things with Commerce because that money comes out of Commerce, not out of North Carolina Housing. So we're working diligently to help support Gates County as well as to help the poverty-stricken individuals in this region.
I don't need one. I got your name.
I thank y'all for allowing us to come and present tonight.
Well, thank you for
Thank y'all
coming.
for coming. And I will say, I'm on the Albemarle Commission, and our budget, because of the efforts of these two folks and others, has, what would you say, quadrupled? Easily over the last couple of years.
We started with 5.3 million a little over 2 years ago, and this next month's budget adjustment will be over $12 million that we brought into this region in a little over 2 years.
Okay.
So they're really out there working.
We're working.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, we'll have the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Asset and Inventory Assessment Grant of Application from Green Engineering. And Brad?
Y'all can tag team.
Good afternoon, board members, and County Manager Wilson. Tonight I have Leo Green of Green Engineering. He's here to present to y'all a draft of the CIP plan and the asset inventory assessment grant. If you'd like, I'll just turn it over to him. He can explain in more detail and
That's good.
see what he's got.
I'll try to package a good amount of information in a short period of time, but a little over, actually a month ago tomorrow. Let me back up. My name is Leo Green. I'm with Green Engineering out of Wilson. We're a civil engineering firm, and our area of specialty is in water and wastewater, all aspects, from collections to the treatment. And a little over, like I say, a month ago tomorrow, we had one.
Okay, thank you.
You received a letter that basically designated you as distressed. And I believe it was just immediately after that, and correct me if I'm wrong, a gentleman from Rural Water. Yes, sir. Spoke to you and said you need to reach out to Rodney Tart. Rodney Tart he works with us. He's an individual that was big in rural water. He was the president of the North Carolina Rural Water for a while and the National Rural Water. He ran Harnett County's water system for 35 years. There's not much he does not know about a rural water system. Anyway, we had the pleasure, we talked on the phone. We were going to the same workshop, the same application workshop where we met Dr. Riddick and Ms. Hoffler and Brad. And from there, we decided to embark at your request to apply, to prepare applications for numerous water projects here in the county. And those applications are due at the end of September. So not having had a previous relationship with Brad not being here very long, records in various forms of completeness, we've covered a lot of ground in the last 3 weeks. And if anybody is here tonight that's had to take Rodney's numerous phone calls asking for information, thank you. Your staff has been over backwards. We've actually met up here a few times. We've done some surveys of your system, and anyhow, we're here tonight. There's a few things that need to be done in order to apply for these applications, and you've got to pass 2 resolutions. One because you have been designated as distressed, and the other basically authorizing to move ahead and seek submit applications for funding for various projects. I'm assuming you have seen the resolution, but there's 6 projects that we have identified just in the last couple of weeks that we feel like that would make an attractive application. Again, nothing is guaranteed, but the first is an asset inventory and assessment of both your water system and your sewer system. And what that is we compile your records. We actually do a physical survey. We locate every meter with the GPS surveying, every hydrant, every valve that we can locate. That is all put into a geo database. At the end of the day, that'll be something Brad and his staff can use. I mean, they'll have it on iPads where they can pull up any part of their system, and based on the information that we've gotten from old plans, it'll identify pipe size, pipe material, the age of the, if it's on a set of plans that has a date on it, we can assign an age to it. And then that's kind of how we go about making our assessment. There's some parts of the system that we can visually assess. And also part of the application on the asset inventory and assessment of your water system will be a hydraulic analysis, a study of your, basically it's your system pressures and your pipe sizes. It identifies where you have bottlenecks in your system, what can be done to boost the pressure in certain portions of the system. So that's one application. Second application is pretty much the same thing for your sewer system. You don't have a large sewer system, but it's in it's in need of an assessment and some repair. There will be an application of, as we understand it now, that you kind of took in Gatesville's water system a while back. Records that we have on that water system, they show some AC lines and things like that, and that's one of the pots of money up there is for the replacement of old aged systems, 40 years in age plus. There'll be one application for that. That'll also include your water tank. I say your water tank, the old Gatesville tank. Through our preliminary surveys, that tank's actually about 19 feet lower than two of your county tanks, and then I think it's probably a good 25 or 30 feet lower than your tallest one. But what that means is it really doesn't get used. We've talked to Southern Corrosion. I think they did an assessment on the tank several years ago. We're looking to get a letter from them, and the intent for the application would be also to replace that tank and raise it. I mean, I talked to one of their representatives yesterday, and I think he made the comment that if everything on that tank was repaired, replaced, rehabilitated, it would be as much, if not more, than a new tank. So that's one of the applications. There'll be a wastewater application to look at making some improvements at your wastewater disposal site, the older one that actually we designed and built back in the, we didn't build it, but designed it back in the early 90s, I believe. And that's a system that's 30 years old. They typically look at those for having about a 20-25 year lifespan before they'll consider making improvements. The fifth application is going to be a meter replacement request. As I understand it, there's 900 meters that you believe are not even working.
We've done a preliminary count and we're up to 1,000 so far.
And meter replacement projects historically don't score all that well unless you're replacing the line that the meter's attached to. So if you were, and I might have jumped over this when I got to talking about the tank, was the replacement of the lines in Gatesville. Well, if that is funded, then the meters would be replaced as part of that project. But we've got a application that we'd like to submit for 1,000 meters. And the long-term goal should be, and it is identified in the CIP, is over a period of several years to go through, as funding is available, and replace all the meters in the county to a kind of a remote read system. So instead of lifting the lid and reading every meter, you ride by it. And we would, we're recommending in those projects that the technology on those meters is they call it a migratable technology, to where over time that system can be upgraded to what they call a fixed-based system, is where you have an antenna or a couple of antennas on your tanks, and you can sit in the billing office, literally hit one button on your computer and it reads all the meters in the county. And no one, and it does a whole lot more than that. It allows you to access real-time data. Somebody calls up and got a leak, it's just, it's the way a lot of people are moving. And the last application, I believe there was some interest in looking at the Gatesville proper area, I guess, is the unsewered community. You've got you got two treatment systems, and one of them, as I understand, was constructed not too long ago, but it's never been used. And the one that actually we had participated in 30-plus years ago, I think was initially permitted for 25,000 gallons, and has been, I guess, derated or re-rated down to 15,000 gallons. And we're looking to, get that back up to 15,000 gallons. So there's 6 applications, and they're broken out into the kind of the categories I went through, because that's how that's how we believe they stand the best chance of getting funded, instead of throwing them all into one application. And they're actually, the asset inventory and assessment, they're different than the construction applications. You have I'm not going to say a one-time opportunity, but this is the ideal opportunity for grant funding, 100% grant funding for this. Number one, because of your recent designation as a distressed system. I don't have the stats or the numbers, but there was a tremendous amount of funding this last spring round that was awarded to such systems. And with that, I guess 3 things need to happen tonight. Is the passing of the 2 resolutions that you should have before you. And I think Rodney at our office has worked with Brad and his staff, and have put together kind of a draft capital improvement plan. And again, that's a big, all of these applications, they're all points based. And for certain programs, you get certain points, and it's kind of, it covers a wide range of, from your rates to your operating ratios, and there's a lot of things that can garner you points. You've got to have a capital improvement plan that's been approved. That's a 10-year plan that's been approved in the last 2 years prior to the application submittal. This is a kind of a working document. This doesn't mean that, hey, next year you've got to do this, but all of the projects that I have briefly mentioned tonight are, identified in this plan. So it's of which a majority in the first several years, hopefully we'll be seeking funding. and from this process and with the data we've gathered, we'll also identify programs that you don't have that we will be recommending and hopefully working with Brad and the county to initiate. So in the spring, when, if one of these doesn't get funded, or you reapply, but now you've developed a wellhead protection program, or done something, you've readjusted your rates, or any different number of items that will get you additional points as you submit in the future. We've always firmly believed if you don't get submitted this round, you beef up your application, you go back to the next round. Might be a different pot of money next round, but you still go back. And sooner or later, they seem to get funded. Anyhow, that's what we have to offer tonight.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Green?
Everybody understands that we have to have all this information, or all these things passed, so for our application to be in by September 30th. That's the drop dead deadline.
That is it. It's not September 30th, it's March 30th.
So how much?
I mean, if you don't get it in by
Right.
September 30th, you wait till the next round.
Yeah.
And it's,
And we want to be considered for this round, and this is where we know the money has already been appropriated for water and wastewater.
this American Recovery Plan, I mean, that's 100% grant. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
100% grant.
it's
That means
100%
money is
grant.
not coming out of the pockets of Gates County property owners or citizens. And so that's why this is very important that we get this done. And, if we get, anybody, any part of it is better than not getting anything.
Yeah, and this is, again, this is a starting point, you know, Brad, again, is just through conversations with him, you know, he's been here just a little while, and he's still figuring out your system and where the deficiencies are, and if you just get the asset inventory and assessment, then he's got a complete working document to move forward with to identify future capital plans and future projects that you will go back and submit probably, you know, in the spring or next fall for dollars out of it. It'll come out of a different pot. They expect all this ARPA money to be spent this round.
Gotta be spent.
And they told us that at the training session.
Yes, they made that quite clear.
That's right.
So how much more information needs to be gathered for the application to be ready to submit? Like much, a little, or?
I'm gonna say we're probably 70% there, and really it's just calling up and getting financial information, getting copies of audits so we can run calculations that the applications require. So it's you know, you know, Rodney's he's persistent, but
Is it
But,
an
I mean,
electronic submission?
Sir?
Is it an electronic submission, or?
This go-round is the first, this cycle is the first time it has been a 100% electronic submission.
Okay.
So it's new to everybody, but it kind of self-checks itself according to the instructors at the training session. But it's electronic, so we don't want to wait till the afternoon of September 30th to submit these applications. We kind of want to get them in, but no, the information's coming in, and you know, part of it is a narrative we have to write.
Right.
Got to tell the story.
Ma'am?
You have to tell the story.
You do, and you know, it's just like any other application. I mean, it's
So we're going to get our application ready and submit it on the 20th of September.
might be a little bit after.
When are we going to submit it?
After the 21st.
No, after the 21st.
Between the 20th and the 29th.
Sounds good.
But it will be before the deadline.
Sounds good.
This total project cost, is that 4,600 and some odd thousand?
4,665,000.
665,000?
We, that might be a combination of several.
Yeah, that's all of it.
And understand that the asset inventory and assessments aren't going to build anything. It's going to create a working document. But some of these other ones will build things, new water lines, new meters, hopefully a new.
How about that tower that you're talking about, the Gatesville Tower being replaced? About how much would that alone stand?
You're probably looking at about, I think he's got $1 million for that.
That's what I say, I
Yeah,
read $1
it's about
million.
$10 a gallon, and I think it's 100,000 gallon tank. And again, you know, to put that tank back compatible with the other tanks in the county, it needs to be raised 17 feet to what you call the high water line. Because if not, all the other tanks, all they do without that altitude valve working is just fill it up with water, you know. It really, the water never turns over because it's using water out of the higher tanks.
So this is a grant program, what we're talking about, and what will be repaired will be based on the amount of funds that we get on each phase of each application will dictate what we do.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
And so far, this past round, we saw not only with applications we had submitted, but especially that we had done a few for other distressed units of local government, and they got 100% funding based on the cost estimate that we had in the application. So unless prices jump way back up through the roof again, you know, the numbers we're putting in these applications, the construction dollars, are based on today's construction dollars.
Okay.
Not something years ago where we're already behind the eight ball, so to speak. So.
How many projects would you say y'all represent
You mean?
throughout North Carolina?
last submittal, I think there were 6 asset inventory and assessment grants we submitted that were awarded. 2 in Weldon, 1 in Pasquotank County, 2 in Columbus County, and 1 in Bertie County.
Good.
And there were, I think, 8 construction projects that varied in size from like a well rehab, a very small size, to Lewiston Woodville community. Got funded for I think it was about $4.9 million for a total replacement of their water system. All the old asbestos cement pipes and all, meters and everything that were funded.
Were they distressed status?
Yes.
Good. Madam Chair, ready to conduct some business.
Okay, no more questions or comments. We have the first resolution of the resolution authorizing grant application for water and wastewater asset inventory and assessment and related studies and infrastructure improvement projects. It's before you. Do I need to read it, or do I need to read the whole thing?
I don't think you need to read it.
Okay, you had it at your desk, you had it in your packet. So do I have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Raise your hand. I forgot Pam's up. Pam don't know. Raise your hand. If you vote for it, raise your hand.
If you're going to vote for it, right, raise your hand.
Okay, the second resolution is a resolution authorizing grant application for viable utility reserve funds as pursuant to county designation as a distressed unit of local government. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Did you get this, the motion and the second? Okay. The final document is the Gates County Public Utilities Department Capital Improvement Plan, fiscal year 22-32. You have it before you. We just had a presentation from Mr. Green. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye. All right. Thank you, Mr. Green. We'll get these minutes certified as soon as we can. We have to get these minutes certified and turned around to Mr. Green as soon as possible. So we'll get that done. We'll get this done. I'm going to sign this tonight. I'm going to sign the resolutions tonight, and we'll get the minutes to you and certified as soon as Ms. Hurdle transcribe them and we get them certified. Okay?
Thank you, Brad.
Al, we know that the deadline for the application is September 30th. The idea would, when we'll get a list of who received those. When will that be announced?
Typically the fall rounds are announced just about right into February.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, though.
Early spring.
That's what I had thought.
Typically right before the spring
Spring
cycle
cycle.
applications.
Okay.
So people know that they need to resubmit it.
Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you. Nice seeing you again.
Absolutely.
I think we'll probably be seeing you a lot, hopefully.
Your staff and Brad and his guys and the folks in the office have been very helpful. And I'm sure that he could come and see it's a certain number, but in a few weeks, there'll be had a lot together in a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is county staff office space. Use of board closed session meeting room for county staff office space. And B, request by Gates County to Historical Society to amend March 17, 2021 lease agreement. Use of room for county staff office space. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you recall, back in June of this year, the board did approve a staff and department reorganizational plan that did create the need to create or find additional office space and some rearrangement. Part of that, or a big part of that, was to try to keep departments together as departments in whichever buildings they may have been located. The space needs for the financial services, planning and development, and the public utilities department, those have all been decided. Some of those have been fully implemented, as with Brad's department, public utilities is now together in one location as a functional department. The last one that posed the greatest challenge was getting back to this building, which houses largely the finance department. There were some new positions that were created, and trying to keep them together as a department and trying to keep functions together, such as the HR director and the payroll specialist. Those are positions that should be kept together, and that's how they're designed also in the approved organizational chart. What I did was try to look at existing office space to try to prevent the need for the construction of additional walls, rooms, doors, so forth, in finding the additional offices that were needed. What I'm looking and what I'm proposing is to keep the entirety of the finance department on the first floor. The clerk would also remain on the first floor, and for the board, and to keep the HR and the payroll specialist on the first floor. We do have space. There's one vacant office on the second floor here, and there's also 2 other rooms that could be utilized for offices. And my proposal is to use those offices. That would become, the second floor of this building would be used for administration. Under the newly approved organizational chart, there's the county manager, myself, an assistant county manager, and an executive assistant for that department. Looking at spaces available, there are 2 of these rooms. One is presently vacant, the other is the board conference room, and working with Ms. Phillips, the director of buildings and grounds, she told me actually the original plan was for these offices up here to be used for county manager and administrative space, as they already have 2 of the rooms, the electricity and the routing and so forth for it. So my proposal is to utilize the one existing office and that's vacant, but to use the second floor to its fullest to house the administrative functions would require the 2 other rooms, which, as the chairman indicated, one room is presently used by the board as its conference room, which you use on occasion for your closed session meetings. And the other room is a room that is currently used by the Historical Society. I am requesting that both of these groups look at dedicating that to office space, which is at a premium to find, and it would also prevent the need to try to create or actually construct additional office space if those 2 rooms could be utilized. The board independently can decide on the conference room. The other room that is used by the Historical Society, that room is specifically identified for the society's use in the lease agreement. So to utilize that room would take the agreement of both the board and the society. So I present that proposal for your consideration as we are trying to move ahead with finalizing office space for the new positions, so those positions can be advertised and filled, and we have office space known and ready for those positions when hopefully we're able to hire.
Discussion?
What other additional costs will come with this?
Additional cost will be for office furniture and for the 2 offices. In this present budget, I did not request funding for the administrative assistant or executive assistant. So in this budget year, there would not be any cost associated with that position, but it would be office furniture, and then the typical computer, other equipment for an assistant county manager position.
So 10,000, 15,000?
Yeah, I would not anticipate it to exceed that.
Have you talked to the Historical Society about changing?
No, I'm looking at first approaching the board, because if the board does not want to relinquish its conference room, then there are no, need for discussion with the Historical Society. If the board does not agree to this, that's the first step in the process. If the board is agreeable, then yes, I would enter into discussions with the Historical Society.
So if the board were to go into closed session, if we agreed, where would you have us go for closed session?
You could maintain your closed session here. And I've been told that that's been done historically in the past. And any citizens present would just leave the chamber and then re-enter upon your going back into open session.
So the current Commissioners Conference room is where you would put your office?
I haven't decided whether, which one would be my office and which one would be the assistant county manager.
Okay.
Our boardroom is relatively large. Could two offices be in that one room?
It's large, but it's not wide. What I would anticipate for that room would be to have your typical, probably like an L desk type setup, and for that type of space to put a round table that would be large enough to seat 5, perhaps 6 people, may even be large enough that it could also accommodate closed sessions for the board. But that would provide a meeting room for the manager, the assistant manager, and other, with individuals that they're meeting with, and would likely be large enough to accommodate the boards as well. So that does remain an option.
Okay,
If we do outfit that with that smaller type meeting table.
So that is that room, and are you talking about the second room being up here by the ladies' restroom, that going right up the steps? Is that the second one you were talking about?
It would be as you go from the conference room, you have the bathroom, and then it's the room with the exterior wall with the window. That would actually be a working room, a supply type room, and the administrative assistant would actually be in the area directly behind here. And then, because that person would serve as a receptionist, a greeter for people coming into the administration section.
Well, I know that in the MOU with the Historical Society, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the Historical Society. I am a member of the Historical Society, but I do not hold an office or anything. But I know the room that they have on the back north wall is for us keeping or preserving artifacts and things that, we have, that's no storage space. And that's our storage area. Or it is, so.
I would look, there's very ample space where the employee break area is, where the old cells are, where the prisoners were held before they came into court. That space would be made available to the Historical Society, which has far more square footage in that than the room here.
I do believe that at one, and correct me, those of you who've been on board as long as I have, at one point the commissioners said, the cells would stay in place. I do believe that they said maybe one set of the cells you could put some black curtains around to hide, stuff behind. But they wanted the cells intact and also to have some that actually were as they were for kids, school groups that come in to see how things were back in the day.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Didn't we talk about that at one point?
Yes, oh, yes.
Yeah. I was ready, but as far as I was referring to space, I mean, space actually that's outside of the cell area is far greater than what's in the one room. And the cell areas do provide, if you actually do want to have something and have it secure, it could be secured because that's what they were made for, was to keep things secure. So it does afford that possibility as well. In fact, some of those cells are actually used by other county departments. We do have some file storage and so forth that already takes place in that room.
Has anyone discussed it with the Historical Society from administration?
No, I was first waiting to see what the decision of this board would be to this proposal.
'Cause I would think they would have a great voice in that since they're responsible for restoring the historic courthouse.
Oh, yeah, I recognize they definitely have a say in this.
Let me put a proposal to the commissioners. As I look at this, I heard that contingent on discussing with the Historical Society, so that's what we should do. So how about this? What about between now and the next meeting, which is the 21st, that we take great consideration, and maybe we could come and see what we're talking about, because I know what I think I know the rooms here, but as far as like the jail and all of that, I don't know this building as well as some of you do. I just don't. So what about this? Have the meeting with the Historical Society, talk with them, the board, and then we can take a visual and look and see in real time the layout of what we're discussing. And that's only a couple of weeks between now and the 21st. That we should get this done, come back on the 21st and put it as an agenda item. That makes sense. I'm just putting it out there.
Do we have internet in those offices that you're proposing?
There is, I'd have to ask Mr. Curry. I know that there's phone connection. I believe there's computer connection in those rooms as well. Is that correct, Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Yes, because that's it. As Ms. Phillips indicated to me, the original plan was that those would be for county administration.
And I know in the storage area that we have present, that the internet is in that, there's whatever it is on one of the walls that we can't put anything in front of.
Yeah, that's just for to aid for the security camera, so that room may have to be reevaluated or may have to have some additional work done to provide internet that's going to be used in office.
Yeah, that room is actually not going to be proposed for an actual office, but being on a second floor, that would be more of an equipment and a supply type room for the administrative functions up here.
Now, as I heard your explanation of the areas, so you would be bringing the public up to speak with them in this conference room with your assistant and what have you?
Are you talking about anyone who wishes
Well,
to see the county manager?
Yeah, I'm talking about what you said about having a conference room with a round table or whatever it was you said, and to entertain or to see the public that will be coming up to visit with administration.
Yes, because the room I have right now, it has a very long desk which serves well for groups. I'd be looking at putting a round table in there for meetings with, if I have, like I had with the gentleman that were here this evening, Mr. Stansel Seinberg, and if there were others, it provides a place to gather around and to meet.
Okay, again, the proposal I just put forth as far as, not deciding tonight because we have not met with the board of the Historical Society. and there are questions about the locations of the rooms and who's going, not who's going where, but the setup of the rooms, like Mr. Curry just said something about the cameras or something. But anyway, it would give us ample time to get a visual of where the rooms are, and some of the questions you've asked Mr. Wilson can be answered. The main thing is to talk with or meet with the Historical Society in person. I don't know who's on the board, but anyway. So that's my input. I don't make motions.
I think it would be advantageous if we met with them and also have a visual tour of what rooms that we're talking about, because of the way the setup is in the back, so that we all on the same page. Certainly which room is what you're talking about is what we have pictured in our minds.
We could do our little tour on our own individually. That would make sense.
Or we can do it after this meeting, walk back there and have it pointed out.
Okay, if we're ready for that.
Do I have a motion from someone?
I make a motion that we request that the county manager meet with the Historical Society
Board.
Board.
I'll second that motion.
Is that the motion? The second was?
I did.
Okay.
Second it. Yes.
Discussion.
Discussion,
When will we bring it back to the board?
21st.
Okay, that's good.
Make that part of the motion, I suppose.
I'll agree to put it.
Miss Commissioner Hoffman.
I'll agree to that. Mr. Commissioner Freeman, you agree with that?
I do.
So you have a motion by Commissioner Hoffler, second by Commissioner Freeman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next is the budget amendment request of Board of Commissioners additional local funding for 2018 CDBG housing grant project. Excuse me. You have it in your packet, the proposed $60,000 budget amendment is to provide necessary funding for known cost overages currently estimated at over $50,000, and to also make funds available for any other potential cost overruns associated with the completion of the above referenced grant in order to complete the replacement of all 4 homes identified in this grant project.
Madam Chair, we received an email from Attorney Godwin
Yes.
on this.
I was going to reference that. You look at that spreadsheet that Attorney Godwin's been working on with Mr. Barnett and McDavid Associates. And you see the total on that spreadsheet and the explanation for the expenditures. This grant was in 2018, and it was 4 replacement homes that were chosen. Right now we have 2 complete, 1 just about complete, and then that 4th home, which is in the Ewell district, is waiting. And we've had cost overruns and other issues with the cost. And so we need to allocate the funds so we can get this CDBG grant closed and people in their home.
And I understand one lady has departed, one lady passed.
Yes, we've had one of the homes, Ms. Walton, passed away last week. She did get to live in the home, and we found that out. We have Laura Godwin working on that. He's been leading that with Michael Irvin, has helped with that as well, as trying to look at the contract with the funding agency to see what happens next. So this has been going on since 2018, and we're trying to make sure that all 4 homes are completed under this contract and wrap it up, and we're putting $60,000 toward what you see on that spreadsheet that you received from Mr. Godwin. And he got that from Mr. Barnett, who is the project manager for the project.
If we approve this, and I know I've seen the spreadsheet, I don't have it in front of me, are we going to try to seek any legal actions trying to get some of our money back?
I don't want to speak to that until, I'll let the attorney take care of that. We're just trying to get these these senior citizens in this home right now.
Absolutely.
So when we wrap this up as far as making sure they have the homes, we'll revisit the contract itself. He has the contract and so does Michael Irvin. So we're trying to do one thing at a time here.
There's a potential for some assistance that Michael has talked about. Just
Oh, yeah.
nobody can commit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He's working on other avenues of things we need to do. So we would just want to do one thing, is keep the contractors working and get these homes done. So
It
this.
has been a long period of this.
Uncalled for.
Yeah.
Uncalled for.
And a lot of it, I mean, it was not the county problem, it's with the contractor.
Do I have a motion on the floor?
I make a motion that we approve this budget amendment for us for the housing grant.
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Owens, seconded by Commissioner Craddock, that we approve this budget amendment as presented in your packet for $60,000. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimous, Ms. Earl. The last amendment request, the Board of Commissioners funding of approved land use concept plan contract. We approved this contract last month, I believe, to get a company in here to do the concept map so that we can get everybody's vision on what the land that we purchased would be used for or look like. That includes input from the citizens themselves. It's not just for the Board of Commissioners. Let's see where that is. This budget amendment is for $18,500.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve this budget amendment so that we can move forward. Mr. Price?
And I'll second that motion.
Properly moved by Commissioner Owens and seconded by Commissioner Freeman. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. You get it, Ms. Earl? Okay, now we're going to get this. Okay. Ms. Hurdle, I will sign these resolutions before I leave tonight. You can get them to Mr. Wilson for certification. As soon as the minutes are ready, I will also sign those and we'll get it ready for certification and get them off to Green Engineering so that we have those checked off and they can continue working.
Madam Chair? If we're going to walk back there as a group, do we need to go back there? We need to take a recess and look and then come back and adjourn?
Y'all want to do that tonight?
Well, that's what I heard.
Well, I think it'd be nice because you get
Okay.
a visualization.
All right.
I'm a visual person.
All right, in order for us to take a tour of the second floor, I think it's the second floor, of the historic courthouse.
We only have 5 floors here, but anyway.
I don't know. We'll take a
5-minute recess?
5-minute recess.
Okay.
Just don't take the chairs with us.
Yes, sir. Meetings is now back in session. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I have a motion that we adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Good idea.